Okay, welcome to the longest video in short reloading videos history. This will be the only video I do that is this long because it's going to be where I show you my opinions on the minimum equipment that you're going to need to get involved in reloading either rifle cases or even pistol cases. There are bare bones systems that take less equipment than this. Like there's some lead loader type stuff that it doesn't even use a bench based press. It's sort of a handheld system. It's kind of special in my opinion as far as being bare bones. So I'm gonna assume that this is kind of people interested in what is it gonna take for me to go out to my garage, to my bench, strap a press to it and get going. I'm going to put a kind of an estimate of the pricing for getting going in the description for this video. I don't want to try to go over it this way in the video itself because it'll get way too long. I'm not going to show you the two things you're going to need that I did not put out here. One, reloading manual, either using online a powder manufacturer or a bullet manufacturer. You're going to need published data. It's good to get a reloading manual, even an older one, not for the recipes, but for the stuff that's in the front that tells you all about this stuff. Okay, and it's also kind of the point of this channel is to show you kind of how to do these things. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm not going to show you a press in this video. You can see my presses in my other videos. You can see everyone else's presses on YouTube. I don't really care what press you use. I'm assuming that your press has a way for you to prime your cases. I'm not including in this any kind of handheld priming system as a minimum requirement because my little presses can prime the cases. And when I started out, I didn't have anything like this, and I had just used the press. So for minimum, here's what I view as the minimum. If you have a case that has a bottleneck on it, if it has a shoulder, I recommend there's multiple kinds of dies. There's basically neck sizing dies, and there's full length sizing dies. I recommend you always get the full length sizing dies. Even if you're going to get a little bit more advanced in your resizing and only bump the shoulder, or you're going to rig up your full length set to only do neck sizing, I recommend you just get the full length set because I have neck sizing sets and once for bolt action rifles, and once I've maybe used the brass 6 or 7 times, it's quite difficult to get it to chamber because it's just so exactly the size of the chamber. Okay. So I recommend you get the full length set. I don't really have a recommendation on brand. I've told you in other videos I really like RCBS sizing dies, and I really like Lee seating dies. If you go RCBS, you will need to buy the shell holder that they tell you to buy. In this case, it's number 3, which is for the entire 30-06 family. Okay, if you're doing full length sizing and you're touching those shoulders and pushing them back, you're going to need a way to trim those cases because as you resize these or as they're just fired, they're going to be too long. Okay, they're gonna grow in overall length beyond the SAMI spec. So you're going to need to, after you resize it, you're going to need to trim it. And this is the Lee system I've showed in other videos where this is the 30-06 components here. This is the little kit you get from Lee, and then you have to buy this lug. This lug threads the shell holder and it goes into a drill to make this feasible at volume, and then the cutter you need to buy as well. I don't remember if these come in as a kit or you buy them separate, but they're not terribly expensive. How do you know that this case needs to be trimmed? Well, I buy these things because they're so quick. I put them on the table and I go, I heard a ting noise. That means the case is hitting the table and it needs to be trimmed because it's beyond the maximum, obviously. However, that's not necessarily required equipment. You could set your caliper to exactly the maximum length that SAMI spec says, and you could try your cases against it and say, well, this one doesn't fit in there, so it has to be trimmed, okay? You can get away with this. You're gonna need this anyway, because when you're done with your cases and you have an overall maximum length, like you maybe have a magazine or just the SAMI spec, you're gonna have your bullet in there. You need to know how long is it to know, do I need to seat it further or maybe less far? So you're already gonna need something like this anyway. Well, you can use this to avoid buying this, because this is like over 20 bucks. Okay, you're gonna need that. You're gonna need components. You're gonna need primers, powder. You're gonna need cases, okay, and you're gonna need bullets, which I, for some reason, don't have in the video. So here are the bullets, okay. You're gonna need something to put on top of this thing. So, I'll put this over here. You're going to need some bins, some buckets. So this one here is kind of my dedicated one. I put my powder in it. And then I take this spoon that I commandeered from the kitchen and I put it into the scale. All right. Beam scales can get expensive. If you don't want to go through the expense right away of buying a beam scale, you may, or maybe one of your old college buddies has a little scale that goes to a half of a grain, or maybe a tenth of a gram. I'm not sure what exactly the lowest level you're going to need. Something that can kind of discern like half a grain. That'd be nice. A tenth of a grain would be even better. These things can do a tenth of a grain. I don't know what those little guys can do. If you make sure you trust the scale you're using. Get your 2 dimes. After you buy all your equipment, you got your 20 cents left. Use your 2 dimes and put it on the scale and make sure the scale shows 70 grain, okay? If you only have 1 dime left, because maybe you went and spurged a little bit, that's 35 grain, okay? So set it up, make sure it kind of works. One thing about a pound of powder, which is what this is 7,000 grain of powder. All right, so that seems like, well, is that a lot or not? Well, so the AR cartridge I load takes 20 grain of powder. So that means in 1 pound, which is about $25 to $30, I get about 350 loads out of it. However, something like maybe a 300 Win Mag, maybe you're using a powder that the recipe calls for 70 grain of powder. You're only going to get 100 loads out of that pound of powder, and it's going to cost about the same amount for the pound of powder. So different cases are going to cost different amounts, Tight group I use for my pistols, and I use like 4 grain, so I get just tons of them. I get like 500 rounds a pound out of the, and it costs the same as something like this, right? So that is, to me, that's pretty much the whole kit. The only thing I didn't mention was if you're using full-length sizing, you're going to need case lube. That is going to be a requirement. It's nice to have a drill. I hope you already have one. If not, you can do these by hand, but my goodness, don't plan on doing many, right? So money speeds this up. The more money you put into this, speeds it up. The load tray is nice. It's not really necessary. You can get away with something like just a tub, but when you've been charging these with your when you're charging these with powder, oh yeah, you're gonna want your funnel. You don't want to have to try to pour this in here, or even worse, in an AR 223 case for an AR. The hole's way too small. You're gonna need a funnel. This is required equipment. So the funnel kind of hugs the case, and it gives you a way to dump your powder in there. Okay, this isn't too expensive, and any funnel will work. But these are nice. This is from RCBS. I get a lot of my gear from RCBS because they just haven't let me down yet. So that's who I go with. Okay, so this is the minimum kit. I'll put an estimate for maybe how to load 100. Maybe like how much would it cost to load 100? Assuming that you bought 5 boxes of ammo, 20 rounds boxes, and you already have the cases. These cases cost me 10 cents a piece because I bought extra at the range. Okay. that's the kit.